What's going on, wrestling family? Welcome back to the channel. So we gotta talk about Friday Night Smackdown. More specifically, this crime scene you see on your screen right now. We're gonna try to investigate and figure out who's the culprit for this whole situation. And of course, oh yes, we're gonna talk about that contract signing that happened at the end of the show. Here's the thing. The fact that the highlights we have for SmackDown is the first few seconds of the show and the last 3 minutes of the show pretty much tells you what type of episode of SmackDown we had tonight. Now, SmackDown was a decent show, don't get me wrong, but they didn't give us a whole lot of material, especially for us content creators. So trying to make a 5-minute video out of 2.5 seconds worth of content or material, it's a stretch, bro. I'm pulling at straws, I'm grasping at straws, but we're gonna get through this. But anyway, before we get started, if you haven't already, do me a favor, hit the like button and subscribe button. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and any other social medias you can find me on. If you can't find me on there, that means I'm not on there. But anyway, let's get into the crime scene. So first and foremost, if you didn't watch SmackDown, they kicked off the show with a car crash. A car crash between a black SUV. It seems like the Bloodline 2.0 was in that vehicle, and it looked like it T-boned. It looked like it was a Ford Escape, like a 2008, 2009 Ford Escape. I had a cousin who used to have that car. And you have them standing outside. You have Tangaloa, with blood going down his head. This man can't take a break, and they're being interviewed by the police department outside. Now, the most disrespectful thing that's happening right here, we see it right here on the screen. And I hate to do this, bro. I love Kathy Kelly. I rock with Kathy Kelly. She's dope. She has an amazing personality. She does great in the WWE. But what a terrible time to start interviewing people. Can you imagine getting in a car accident, one of the most traumatic events of your life, and then you get out of the car with a broken rib and somebody comes out there to do a post-game interview? Like, what is going on? Asking you, like, hey, you know, when you made the left instead of the right, what did you do wrong and what could you do better to avoid the next accident? No, I have a concussion, bro, possibly, and I'm bleeding. I don't want to talk about this stuff, okay? And you got Adam Pearce coming out there, you know, trying to assess the situation and everything like that. Now, what makes this thing doubly disrespectful is the fact that the Super Saiyan pastor, Cody Rhodes, comes out there to ask Adam Pearce about a contract signing, knowing that there's a man bleeding from his head and Tangaloa right behind him. Ignored the whole car accident, ignored all the oils and fluids leaking from the cars, the smashed up fenders and everything like that to go in for himself, right? That's just pretty selfish, right? That's just, like, I don't want to get in a car accident ever again, okay? And have the police officer, you know, one of their friends walking up saying, hey, remember that $20 I borrowed from you 2 paychecks ago? Can I get that back? Like, no, get off the scene, bro. We trying to get better here. But anyway, all jokes aside, the question is, who could be the culprit for this whole situation? Now, if you just look at this and you assess it, it looks like it's a normal parking lot accident. It looks like the Bloodline was trying to speed off and probably didn't see the escape, and then they T-boned them on accident. I thought this was like an open and shut case. But apparently, this type of thing needs some investigation, right? I've seen worse accidents with no investigation, but this is the wrestling world. So this is the reason why I love it, because it's stuff that doesn't make sense in reality, but it makes all the sense in the world of wrestling. So they thought that Jacob Fatu was the person that caused this accident. So the fact that they have to do an investigation, that lets us know that it wasn't just Solo Sikoa getting drunk and smashing into somebody else's car. There's more to it. And then they get Jacob Fatu. Jacob Fatu goes with the police. He ends up back on SmackDown. Jimmy is giving him a handshake and everything like that, which tells us that he's innocent, right? Which was pretty obvious. When it comes to these things, if you watch any type of crime documentaries, if you watch anything like that, you know the first person they go after is usually not the person who did it. We saw with Jade Cargill when she got smashed on top of the car, the first person they went after was Nia Jax, and we know it wasn't her. In the murder documentaries, it'd be like a person that's like, oh, who killed this person? Oh, we found this guy. They had this person's DNA on their clothes. They had the knife, a suspect, and things like that. Come to find out, it's never the guy. It's usually the guy up in the living room eating jelly beans, right? Like, it's always somebody else. So obviously it wasn't Jacob Fatu. And then later on in the show, Solo Sikoa gets arrested by the police, which again is kind of weird because the guy was right there and they could have checked the cameras. But again, it's the wrestling world. It doesn't have to make sense and all the time. But they arrest Solo Sikoa, which at that point, I highly doubt that it was Solo Sikoa. That, I mean, I don't think he was driving. I think Tangaloa was driving, but I highly doubt that it was him who did this on purpose, because it's like, okay, then who was in the other vehicle? Like, they never revealed that. They just showed that the Bloodline was standing outside, and the car that they crashed into didn't just drive itself. Somebody was driving that car. But despite all of that, who is the person who caused all this mess? Now, I got a couple of ideas in mind. I'm going to start off with the less likely and move on to the most likely, all right? So less likely, for one, I would assume with this whole, mid-card division on SmackDown, it seems to be the Polynesian division, which I perfectly fine with. I don't want no problems with Samoans. I rock with Common Kings. I'm assuming it could be Lance Anoa'i. Because remember, he signed on the WWE around the same time that Hikuleo, who is now Talatonga or Talatonga, whatever they call him. They signed at the same time, but Lance hasn't debuted yet. So maybe this can have something to do with him. Probably one of those friends who take it too far when they side with people, trying to protect Jacob Fatu and went too far, right? Maybe that could be him. But, if it's not, it is what it is. Maybe it was Zilla Fatu. I highly doubt that as well, but maybe it was him. That seems like the most Zilla Fatu thing to ever do is to crash into someone else's vehicle because he's about that type of life. But I think the most important person we need to focus on, and this is something that my guy Byron on the Flex Zone podcast when we were live streaming, he alluded to. We got to talk about this guy right here, right? Look at we got to talk about this, man. And I hate saying that a black person would do something like this. But the fact that they were near the crime scene, and the fact that we saw a photo with the Street Profits and R-Truth, Ron Killings, and Carmelo Hayes, kind of suggests that maybe they're going to be in a faction, something like another Hurt Business type of situation. Maybe not just like the Hurt Business, but something similar, but with those four together. And the fact that Carmelo Hayes was highlighted in the match against Damian Priest kind of suggests that they're trying to put them in a certain situation. Now, why would this make sense? Because R-Truth, Ron Killings, he says, I'm driving now. So maybe he was one driving that 2003 Ford Escape. And R-Truth, he kind of dressed like those rappers who did mixtapes back in the early 2000s. And that Ford Escape is a car you would get from back in the day when people were serving people. But maybe it could be them. And that could start off their faction, right? The Street Profits just lost their titles, so they're pretty upset. R-Truth is a heel right now. Carmelo Hayes needs this boost because he's barely ever on TV. So this will make all the sense in the world for them to do this, to kick it off, and then, to have a war between them and for the Bloodline 2.0. I think that would be a great idea. I think Byron's spot on about that one right there. Then later on, we had a contract signing, right? And this was kind of hilarious. I know people are going to take this really serious, but it is what it is. You had Cody Rhodes getting ready for the contract signing, had the table laid out, had the velvet across the table, just sitting there chilling in one of his Steve Harvey suits, waiting for John Cena to come out and sign the contract so they can have their match at SummerSlam, which I will be there, and I'm excited about seeing this match. This is obviously going to be way better than what we got at WrestleMania. But John Cena comes out with his San Antonio Spurs inspired gear with the towel. He goes into the ring, lays out the towel gently on the floor, goes inside and picks up the microphone, and tells Cody Rhodes that unfortunately he will not be able to have this match at SummerSlam. Which nobody believes it, but the fact that they attempted to, I think it's hilarious. And John Cena was like, yo, I'm filming this movie with Netflix. Netflix knows about it. WWE knows about it. I am mentally and emotionally drained. I don't have the energy to do the match, which I'm just like, bro, it's 2 weeks away, bro. Go take a nap, go to bed, take some melatonin or whatever. Get some rest, relax, bro. Watch some cartoons, right? Stop stressing. And Cody Rhodes obviously isn't okay with that idea. Now, I like the fact that this happened because they're pulling in every feud that Cody Rhodes has been involved in. They've had this hint of him turning heel. Now, even though they may not do it right now, is it possible that a double turn could happen at SummerSlam? I don't know. But he's like the biggest babyface on the roster, so to turn him heel right now would be a weird choice to make because you don't have a babyface to serve as the face of the company unless we do a double turn and John Cena becomes the face of the company until he retires, right? Until the end of the year happens. But even then, that's a risk because John Cena got to leave at some point. So unless they can fast track someone as a babyface before John Cena retires for Cody to turn heel, I don't know. Maybe LA Knight is the key. I don't know. I don't really know how that can really work out. But in all of these feuds, they showed a hint of him turning heel from how he was crashing out against Brock Lesnar. Understandably so. When he almost smashed AJ Styles' head with those stairs. Mortal Kombat 2, salute. Understandable. When he stood over Kevin Owens in that match, that ladder match at Royal Rumble, when he stood over him instead of like trying to make sure he's okay, understandable. So the fact that Cody Rhodes got aggressive here is going to be very interesting to see how this plays into it. Now, what's more interesting is the type of match, the type of stipulation they're going to get at SummerSlam, which gives him full reign to be as heelish as he needs to be, or even as a super aggressive babyface. So, in the contract signing, John Cena says, I can't do it at SummerSlam. Sorry if I'm all over the place. And Cody Rhodes didn't want to accept it. He takes the title. Eventually, after John Cena tries to run up the ramp, he attacks him, takes the title from him, hits John Cena in the face, gets on top of the turnbuckle, which I thought was the most hilarious thing ever. He went up there with the contract and the folder in his hand. I'm like, bro, that better be a bulletproof folder, because if that thing snaps in half, that contract is null and void. But speaking of null and void, Cody does a splash on John Cena going through the table with the contract in his hand. Again, that's hilarious. That is hilarious. Then grabs John Cena's arm, forces him to sign the paperwork, which is fully null and void for that contract. That is illegal, bro. That's not even legal. But it's the wrestling world. Remember, we had Io Sky, Rhea Ripley, and Bianca Belair. All three of them signed the same contract that had one line, which make no sense at all. No sense at all. But again, this is a wrestling world. This is why we love these type of things. So Cody Rhodes then announced that they're going to have a street fight at SummerSlam, which for me, I love street fights. And the fact that it's a street fight, Cody Rhodes is going to go closer to heel as possible. But I don't know if that's going to be the moment where they actually turn him. I think they're going to just continue to sprinkle seeds into this heel turn until they actually pull the trigger. So they can say it's always been there, which honestly is the truth. Cody has done some aggressive heel-like situations, cheated in some matches, and they kind of ignored it, which I think they'll take those points and use them in the future. But he's been cheating in some matches. Not as clear as they normally make it for heels, but he's cheated in some matches. Some matches he did not win the right way. And there's some things he's done to people that wasn't right. Like I said, when he tried to kill AJ Styles on national TV, that was kind of crazy. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play this out. And I like this for Cody Rhodes because he's not just this goody two-shoe person, but they're actually giving some layers to his character and showing the human side of him. When he first came to WWE, when he first came back to WWE, and he had that feud against Seth Rollins, the way in that first year he was like polished, he was perfect. That's why I call him the Super Saiyan Pastor, because he was like super inspirational to like Sami Zayn and to Jey Uso, to so many other people. He just seemed so perfect. But now we're starting to see the layers of his human side, and it's going to be very interesting to see what they do with that, right? You know, it's so easy to have a baby face that just does everything right, but the fact that they're giving them layers, I think that's really, really dope. But at the end of the day, the episode of Smackdown was pretty decent. It was a decent episode. I think we got a couple of good matches, and we got a YS6 promo as well, which I thought was pretty cool. I would like to see how they're gonna make them go back to being a lot more creepier, a lot more spookier, especially now that they have the tag team titles. So we'll see what happens with that. But anyway, I'm just yapping. If you guys like this episode of SmackDown, let me know in the comment section, how do you feel? Do you think a street fight will make this a lot better in the match against Cody and John Cena? Personally, street fights, I love them, because if there's any wrestlers who have a ton of mistakes as far as in the ring, or they lack in any type of ability, street fights pretty much covers that up. And that's why I like it. It's violent, it's brutal. I hope they take it to the next level. And that pretty much tells us we about to get some crazy stuff happening to this match, because there's no disqualifications, which means that somebody is going to show up. Now, who's going to show up? That's going to be the question that is going to be answered at SummerSlam. I'm going to be there personally, so I'm going to be very interested to see what happens there. But anyway, thank you guys so much for supporting me, for your patience. I don't know what else to say. Hope you guys have a great day. Salute, peace. Have a good one.